on playing. Like,
Yeah. Don't tell people about playing right now, Alex, because they're gonna ask me to play, and I cannot play online. But you know what we can do? We can welcome our entire community, friends. Welcome back to the Angular live stream Q&A. Listen, we got a special session today. You have been asking for this person for so long. You've been like, bring Alex, and here we are. Alex Rickabaugh, one and only. I mean, one of the kindest, smartest people I've ever met, and just a fantastic team member, team lead, fantastic human. If you ever get the chance to meet him, you will not be disappointed. They say don't meet your heroes, but if you met Alex, I don't think it'll go bad. I think it'd be actually pretty fantastic. So, yeah, Alex, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm great. Wow, thank you. That's so sweet, Mark.
Well, it's
Yeah,
true.
happy to be here.
Yeah,
Happy
good.
Friday, everyone.
We got so many people already here. Let's see. We got Lars in the building. What's going on? But not here. Hello. I butchered your name. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna try better. Joe in the building. Got some early birds here. Y'all were ready 15 minutes before we started. That's amazing. Angular Code Spotlight in the building. 12 waiting. I know people. See, Alex. 12 people were waiting before we even started. Like, it's pretty fantastic. Michael Small, community member in the building. What's going on? Esther in the building. What's up, Esther? Good to see you. Oh, Igor always in the building. Let's go, Maxar. So many people. Natalia, hello. Logan, what's up? So Commandante, welcome back. Good to see you. Adi, yo, I gotta tell a quick story. I went to Greece this year, and I spoke at DevOps Greece. Fantastic conference, fantastic community. But Artist is one of our GDEs who is also a co-organizer of this event. And he was so kind to like take me and my wife out to dinner, and we had a really great conversation, great time. So shout out to Artist for that. That was fantastic. Eugene in the building. All right. I can't say hello to everybody, but Alex is here. Boy, everyone's ready. All right. So listen. This is the best way to interact with us today. Bring all your questions. I'm going to be queuing them as they come up. Alex will answer. I think we got about an hour of Alex's time. He's super busy. The whole team is super busy right now, so we're going to make the most of this time. So start putting in those questions so we can start answering. Uh, and first question is it's really about. Can you just talk about the state of signal forms and what's happening?
Sure. So, Signal Forms, recently we went through what we would call our high-level design review. So that's kind of sharing with the rest of the team and some of our partner teams at Google just what the large-scale design of Signal Forms is, kind of generally how the mental model works, what are the different pieces. Currently, we are focused on investigating a couple of parts of the design that still need to be fleshed out. A big one there is interoperability with the existing form system. So if you have parts of your application that are using reactive forms, for example, you should be able to start using signal forms and incorporate that into your reactive form or vice versa. That's something that we've always wanted to have from the beginning, and we're in the process of working on that. We're looking more at our story around how you submit forms and how the error management happens afterwards. So when the server returns errors, how do those get shown in the UI? How does that blend with the validation errors that are there on the client? When do they get removed? There's some technical challenges there. There's some UX challenges there. And that's a good piece of it. We are also looking at kind of getting the code base ready to merge from the prototype branch into the main Angular repo, which will unlock, for example, actually making modifications to the existing form system that are in service of interop with signal forms. So as always, we don't talk about timelines or anything like that, but yeah, they're going well. I can maybe do a demo later if people are interested, but
Ooh.
yeah.
I'm interested. Okay, I'm not putting any pressure on you to do that, but I do think that could be pretty exciting if you were able to show just like I mean, friends, if we show this, remember this is a high look, things may change before final launch. I just want to make sure that that's super clear. because one thing that we've noticed that, like, as a community, like, you all are so enthusiastic about some of the major features that we release that when we say it's experimental, you think that that means production light, but it really does mean experimental. So like, if we show it to you, don't like go try to find like a pre-release candidate branch. I'm like, okay, I'm going to run into production. Okay, just want to let you know. I won't want to set that expectation. Very, very cool. Yeah. See, people are already excited. Already a lot of questions. Yeah, got a lot of questions. All right, excellent. Let's jump to a question, and we're gonna bounce back and forth between topics. But I do want to say, can I create agents with with Angular? I think you mean AI there. Um, you can, you can. So if you go to our GitHub repo, I think it's GitHub. Let's see, /Angular/examples. We actually have some example code using agents, but here's the even better thing you can do. Go to angular.dev/AI. I want everybody to do that, please. Go to angular.dev/AI. You can see detailed instructions on how to build an agentic app, so an app that uses agents, but you can do more. Let's say that, so building with AI, with AI powers is one part of the story, but a lot of people are interested in building using AI tools to build their Angular applications. Well, we've put a ton of work into fine tuning and creating some prompts that we think you all will really love across platforms, mind you. So these prompts work across platforms and different models. So head over to angular.dev/AI. Check out the latest that we have there, because we have prompts, we have detailed instructions, and examples, code walkthroughs, a lot of really great content. So head over there and let us know what you think. Let us know what you think. All right, let's see. Will Angular get and give some more love from and to web components? I'm talking about Angular elements and Angular's underwhelming custom element schema. Appreciate the honesty, Maxar. Thank you.
Yeah, so that is something that was on our backlog of kind of doing an evolution of the custom elements schema. We had a lot of ambitions around using TypeScript types and type definitions to do type checking of custom elements instead of the kind of custom element schema is really like an as any. It just stops the type checking from actually working. It is not something that we are actively working on. If that's important to you, I would say go find the GitHub issue and upvote and comment and give us some signal that like this use case is valuable for you or your organization. That really does help. That really does factor into our prioritization.
Excellent. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Yeah, let's see. Oh, this is very nice. Mark, you always what's your gym routine? I don't really have one right now. I used to be, so I'm living off the residuals of a very rigorous lifestyle of gym routines for years, and now because I'm so busy, I don't work as much as I used to. So I even, okay, so this is a true story. You friends may not know this about me, but before joining Google, I had a startup that I built, which was around fitness. It was a fitness app that I was trying to get out there, and I built it in Flutter. And that's how I got connected with Google, was that people from the Flutter team saw a lot of my work, and they was like, oh, this guy's okay. You know, you should apply. And I'm like, okay, I'll apply. And then Angular was like, hey, yo, we got a spot open. And I was like, what? Totally. So then I ended up on Angular team. But yeah. Thank you for the very kind statement here. Will signal form support different schemas on different elements of the same array? Ooh, tricky.
In a way, because we support conditional schemas. So you can create parts of your schema that only apply for a certain type of element, for example, or for a certain index in the array. So there's one schema, but that schema doesn't necessarily have to do the same thing depending on what the element is.
Ooh, nice. Okay. All right. Friends, here's what we're going to do. I want to ask maybe, let's say, 3 more questions, and then we'll get to a demo. Then we'll take more questions, and then we'll kind of go from there. How does that sound, Alex?
Sounds good.
Okay, good. Because I know there's a bunch of good questions here. I saw there are nice UI libraries and many components, but I found this thing is missing an Angular material. Is the Angular team going to do something about UI?
Ooh, yeah, that's hard for me to answer specifically.
Yeah.
I work more on the core Angular framework, render, compiler, etc. we should get Andrew Seguin on here at some point.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. Oh, that's a really great idea. Yeah, Andrew Seguin is one of our other leads, and he has a lot of information about this because that's what his team works on. So, you know what? If you all okay, here's how you can influence these live streams. If you like and subscribe to this channel and you put the thumbs up, here's what that will let us know. That when we do stuff like this, you all like it and you'll show up. And then I have the data and the evidence to say, hey, other team members, come and spend time on the live stream with the community, right? So that's how you can help influence this, because you all kept asking for Alex. And I was like, listen, Alex, and he can tell you, I said, the streets really want you on the live stream. And he's like, okay, I can show up for the streets. So like and subscribe, and we'll make it happen.
And I think there's some interesting conference talks coming later this year on some of the things we're doing in the UI component space that you might want to stay tuned for.
Oh yeah, get them excited because some really cool stuff going on. Okay, this is funny, but true, I think, right? So could signal forms could just be named forms?
Yeah, potentially, eventually. I thought of like another joke we had on the team is confusing everybody by calling them model-driven forms.
Please do not do that. Please do not confuse the streets.
Yeah. I think for right now, signal forms is probably the best differentiator we have as to why it's a separate thing as well.
Yeah, let's see. Okay, so I'm going back to the questions. Let's do one more, and then we'll have Alex share screen, and then we'll jump in. Somebody said, please not. Wait, so people like that I didn't. It was like, please not. Please not. Please. Okay. Well, we will not do it. Yeah. All right, let's see. What's the next question? There's another really good one. Oh, this is good. I saw somewhere that signal forms are scheduled for 20.2. Is that like true? Is there any truth to that?
Was it an AI that was hallucinating something? No, I mean, I think we occasionally put like goals on like, GitHub projects or things like that, but those are not commitments. Those are not schedules. They're just kind of highlights of our own part of our process where we're just trying to figure out what needs to happen in what order.
Okay. Yeah. So not yet, not 20.2, but we do. We have a blog post coming up that myself and one of our other team members is working on that'll give some updates, because we've been quietly releasing like a lot of little features here and there, of some different things across 20.1 and 20.2. And we thought it might be worth it to just like round up all the cool features and just drop like a little blog post like, hey, this is what we've been doing over the summer on top of all the other work that we cannot wait to share with you. There's so much cool work that we want to share with you, but we just gotta, we have to stay calm and keep focused, and you always have to be a little bit more patient with us. Alex, why don't you kick on your editor, share your screen, and then I'll add it to the stream, and we'll do signal forms quick demo.
All right.
Let's see what else. I'm looking at more questions.
I can share. Perfect.
Oh, great. Let's see. As soon as that's up. All right. Let me know when you got it in a place that you can share.
Yeah, this should be good.
All right. Awesome. And then while you're doing that, somebody asked a different question. Mark, is a gradient in your background new? Have I missed a lot of live shows? It's not new. I forget to turn on the lights because those are physical lights, and sometimes I forget to turn them on. And so that's why you don't always see them every time. But when I do remember, it's a nice touch. Very nice touch. Thank you for noticing, though. I put a lot of work into this, so it means a lot that you noticed. Okay, Alex is going to show us, or you tell us what you're going to show us, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so this is a pretty typical demo that we have of a form that's kind of simplistic, but surprisingly shows off a good number of features. So this is a shipping form. We have kind of required field for username, display name. I touched the field, interacted with it, so I'm now seeing the error. But then you can add items to the shipping and expand down into the item. And we have kind of different options here. So you can ship to an address. You can see the form kind of adapts to the changing selection I made. Invalid, which will just start producing an error. I don't know why that would be an option, kind of contrived. But a location and then the required status of location kind of depends on whether I check this checkbox or not. So if you've used forms in Angular, you might recognize that some of these things are actually kind of hard to do. When you have forms that adapt in various ways, or for example, when I'm adding other, like adding new items to a list and things like that. And so here we have the, password's a password field. And then I think there is a requirement that one item must be delivered to a locker. So we're kind of validating the whole list of items across the list of items, and showing you when kind of your higher level selection here also has errors in it. And then of course, submit actually sends the form. I think we give you some server driven error here. So let's look at this from a code perspective. Is the font size okay here? Do I need to make it bigger?
I think that's okay.
That's good. Okay.
And if it is too small, friends at home, let us know.
Yeah. So the kind of dream of Signal Forms started with this idea that we wanted to give you the ability to represent the form model as data that you own. So rather than constructing a model out of form pieces like form control and form group, form array, and so forth, that your model would just be a plain data structure. And in addition, your model would be data that you own, meaning you have it in some signal in your application, and you give the form system the ability to change that model. So here's username, here's display name, items we're getting kind of constructing out of, it's stored in another file somewhere. Or actually, this is the same file, I guess, but here's more structure, right? We have a kind that's locker, we have an address. And you'll note that this item has both the option for address, both the fields for address and the fields for locker. So even though I go into the item here and select locker or address, and some of those fields, some of those editors are shown or hidden, depending on that, the form is actually storing both states simultaneously. And that's important because if I go into address and enter, like it's going to try to autocomplete my address here, hopefully not. If I enter 123 Main Street and switch over to locker, if I come back to address, I want to see this here still. We don't want to lose the user's input just because they happen to click through and hide or show some particular field.
Now, was that hard before, Alex, with reactive forms?
Not necessarily that particular piece of it.
Okay.
So then on top of the form model, we have this idea of a schema. And the schema is where you tell us about what are the rules of this form, what matters, what doesn't. So our schema is written in kind of this DSL. You can write your own helpers. P here is a concept representing a path of the form. And that's basically a way of saying, hey, how do I talk about a given field without knowing what's in that field, without talking about its value? In this case, they're one-to-one, but you might imagine, for example, the items of the form. I want to tell you how to validate or process an item without knowing exactly which item it is. So here, username is required. I have some additional validation logic on username. I think this is actually irrelevant today. I think required does that internally now. And then for the items, we have this validation that at least one of your items must go to a locker. And so on the items field, we're producing an error when the value of that field, which is the array of items, when not one of them has kind locker. And then we have this apply each. And what apply each does is say, okay, we have an array. Every item in the array must follow the set of item rules. And so the set of item rules has this conditional logic that we're talking about earlier. So when the item has kind locker, then we want to apply some logic. Okay, you need a locker location if the value of the locker or required location field is true. And its password is disabled if you have the verify login only checkbox set. Or if the item is an address, then we have a different set of rules that we're validating. Or if the item is invalid, then we're just producing an error. So this is how Signal Forms works. And then on the template side, I can kind of show you the template for an item.
Well, pause for 1 second, Alex, because I feel like what you showed was some pretty sophisticated and elegant way to handle like validation.
Yeah, so let's do something, right? There is a password field here. So on item, if you select the, or if you don't have verify login only set up, there's password that gets enabled, right? So we'll go down to item, and I have this password field. And a common thing in Forms is to have like the confirm password, right? And so, yeah, now I have a type error, of course, because when I'm actually adding one of these things, I need to add this. And then somewhere else, I think we push an extra item to the list. So let's just put it there. Yeah, so I've added it to the model. It's not going to show up in the UI yet. So that's a good way to look at how to do that. So I'll just find where we're putting this password input here. We're using mat form field and mat input. I can copy this over to a second password here, confirm password. And you can see here that we have some reference to the locker, and we're using this control directive, which is how you interact with Signal Forms in the UI, to bind a particular form field to a control. And so I just need to change this to confirm password, and same here, confirm password when I'm showing the errors. And here we're showing the first error, but you can imagine this is a loop where you have some way of presenting errors. And that should be enough to start seeing password and confirm password. I'm just going to change these to text so that you can actually see what I'm typing. So right now, of course, there's no validation that these two things are at all equal, right? So let's add that. And this is something that was typically hard to do in the existing form system, especially reactive forms, because validators only get the value of the field that they're sitting on. So here in my, I want item schema, not the, all right, so when we're in locker, we're going to validate something. And we are interested in validating, let's put the error on the password itself. So item locker password. And I'll just do this for now. We get this context object. And context tells us about the particular instance of the item we're on. So we could ask for the value. This is going to be the value of the item. And so this is going to be a string, I think, because it's the current password. So what we actually want to validate is if the current password does not match the confirm password, right? So we need to go get the value of the confirm password. And for that, I can ask the context for the value of some other field. So here we can ask for the locker confirm password. And if they don't match, then I want to return an error, right? So password mismatch, let's say.
Oh, I see where you're getting the item from.
Passwords do not match. Otherwise, I think I return undefined. Yeah. So now we have this validator. And if the demo gods are with me here,
let's see.
I should start seeing, oh yeah, okay, my error serialization is not great, but 4, 5, 6 does not work. 1, 2, 3, and it goes away.
Hey,
Exactly.
let's go. The streets are going to go wild over this. That's awesome.
And notice if we actually go look at the code for add item, which is in the app component, add item, this add item function, all this is doing is pushing a new item to the array. It didn't need to create any extra form state. It didn't need to kind of tell the form system how to handle this new item, how to validate it. All of that happens because in the schema, when we created the form, we said every item should be validated with the item schema. So forms will see a new item in the lists and know this is the rules that we should apply to it.
Fantastic. Okay, so for the people who are just seeing this and may not know a ton about like what we're doing here, one of the big value adds is not only the like functional nature of the way some of the things is working, but also the fact that this is tied back to like our core primitive data type of a signal, right? Like at the core, keeping everything in sync should be done for you now because of the core value add of signals managing, you know, their own state.
Right. So the signal form system is really kind of designed to give you access to all of the signals you need. And at that point, things like validation, things like is a field disabled, is a field hidden, is a field read-only, are effectively computeds of whatever signals you set them up to be. So we have a way of kind of letting you define that logic and a way of letting you access other signals from the form system. You don't have to do that. You can use signals from outside of the form just as well inside that logic, and that works fine.
Can you give us just like a hypothetical about when will we pull from a signal that's not in our like form model?
So a good example of this would be if you have some experiment system in your application where you have a toggle between two different types of UI. You can include that in your form logic. And if you have the experiment on where you like, you know, do async validation for something, you can enable it at that point.
Love it. All right, let's see what the people are saying, because I think people are excited. Like Brandon says, signal forms is going to be smooth. Oh, this person looks really excited. Finally, I will not have to fight with form array anymore. Yeah, so people are really like loving this. Let's see. It's never. What did this person say? It's never late for Angular. Of course not. I barely. What did you say? Oh, I barely said he was late. No, you're never late. That's right. That's the right answer. Okay, so many questions. Okay, so let's start pulling out some of the questions from the demo. Oh, somebody said, interesting to see a non-AI editor in use. We haven't gone that far.
This is StackBlitz.
Yeah.
I miss it in StackBlitz. I need to create the demo in Bolt probably, which is their AI tool.
Yeah, but we haven't gone that far. Like developers still use all kinds of tools. Like, you know, I think in 2 years it'd be weird. I don't know if it's weird now. You know what I mean? But in 2 years, it'd be like, wait, this is like a regular, like old-fashioned editor. You know what I mean? Like, where's your assistant? Like, I think that's coming though. Oh, somebody loves this. Validators being typed is great.
Yeah.
Was that a pain point that people had before, Alex?
Absolutely.
Okay. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a pain point. Signal forms, easy peasy, release it now. Andres, no.
It is not cooked yet. Still in the oven.
We do not want to give anybody salmonella right now. Like, relax. It's coming though. I love that you're excited. Okay, let's get to, we got 16 questions. All right, let's see. Some of these will be about the demo, but I'm going to be jumping back and forth because some people have been very patiently waiting for their chance. So I don't want to ignore those folks. When to use link signal versus computed, Alex?
The link signal docs are pretty good about kind of showing some of the use cases here. But in general, you use computed when the thing you're deriving is purely based on the thing that you are deriving it from. And you're only interested in kind of memoizing that computation and keeping it performant. You use link signal when you need to do something more, like you need to be able to update the thing that you derived as the user makes selections in your UI, for example. Or if you need to derive it in a way that cares about the previous value and wants to do kind of less pure things in that space.
The pure part really sticks out to me. Yeah. Like kind of side effect free with the computed, right? Like full name, right? It's like every time I calculate full name, it's side effect free. Like nothing happens. Yeah. Yep.
So the example that I always give is like if you have a UI that's selecting toppings for a pizza, and you have the user made a choice, their choice might be a link signal, which is storing they've selected pepperoni, but then the menu changes, and the set of toppings that are possible options change. Now, maybe we just added extra cheese, right, or pineapple or something to the menu, and pepperoni is still a valid option. Or maybe we ran out of pepperoni and it got removed from the list. And now you have kind of the state that's in the user's link signal of the thing they selected and the menu, and you need to resolve these things. And that's what link signal can do. So you can define your menu, your selection signal to say, hey, if the menu changes, I can actually go and look and see what the old menu was, what the new menu was, what my old value was. And, my value is currently pepperoni. Is pepperoni still on the menu? If so, great. That's still the selection I want to go with. But if it's gone, then I can revert back to, a default.
Oh, but even this too. So what if pepperoni changed? It's like metadata, like the index or something changed, but it's still a valid answer.
Exactly.
Yeah. Good. That's a really good example. You know what? I should code up that example on a live stream, or we should do it one day on a live stream because I think it'll really help people to see something very interesting. All right, let's go to the next question. A lot of new things for signals, but aren't we witnessing the building of an ecosystem like RxJS is with all of its complexity and a tall learning curve?
So the first part of this question, right? Are we witnessing the building of an ecosystem? I really hope so. I think you see this a lot in kind of other frameworks that use signals, right? This is not a new thing. This is not an exclusively Angular thing. Over time, they kind of add primitives to it and people build libraries around it. So I hope we're seeing that kind of genesis. I also think like talking about RxJS as complexity and tall learning curve is maybe a bit unfair to the library. Async in general is very hard to deal with. And it's hard to deal with because the way our kind of programmer brains want to think about async is to almost like think about the happy case and sweep under the rug all the terrible ways that things can go wrong and go out of order. And RxJS does a good job of kind of making you confront that part of the complexity of the problem. Where I think things went a little bit wrong and where a lot of the perception that RxJS has a really steep learning curve and it's hard and complex and everything is how RxJS ended up being used for state derivations and state flow into UIs. Because you can model state flow as asynchronous events, but that brings in a lot of complexity that's not inherent in the problem, but inherent in your solution. You have to start thinking about things like share replay because events by their nature are ephemeral. If you didn't subscribe in time, you missed it. You can't ask what the current value of an observable is. And so you need things like share replay in there to say, oh, on new subscriptions, I'm going to re-emit the event so that you get the current value. You have to deal with the fact that, map now runs on every intermediate state. And so if you emit 100 items, you're going to do 100 maps, even if you only really cared what the value was at the end. So I think a lot of the learning curve of RxJS was learning to use it to solve a problem that it really isn't a good fit for.
That's right. That's right.
And signals are a much more natural fit to state management. People ask us, why don't you have an output signal instead of the output event emitter? It's because output signals are not a good fit for outputs. They're not a good fit for events. So I'm less concerned that we're going to end up kind of rebuilding the same complexity because I think we are focusing on building the right tool for the problem. and not overfitting to problems that it's not a good solution for.
I agree with that. That's always been my opinion, is that like we were really trying to, just as a community, put RxJS in places to solve problems that it wasn't the best tool for, and our solutions just became more complex over time because of that. Yeah, no, that's totally true. It's totally true. I mean, and plus, like you said, though, like let's not neglect the fact that asynchronous programming is hard, which is why RxJS even came about, is because there was a real problem, right? Like with handling these things. And RxJS isn't even the first library to like try to solve that. There was CycleJS a while back too. That was the first the first one that I remember like learning about. That was a big attempt at this. But I didn't even understand the problem space when I learned about Cycle, actually. I just thought the person who made it was just smarter than me. I was like, this person just, just on a different planet. So I'm like, they're too smart. So I don't know what this problem is. I don't have this problem, but I just hadn't built a sophisticated enough system yet where I needed that solution.
Yeah.
But eventually it comes. Yeah, for sure. Great question. All right, let's keep going. Thank you. That's so nice. We will do more AI live streams. I promise. More are coming. And we're going to bring Rody Davis back from Firebase Studio. So don't you worry. I know you all loved having him on the stream too. I want to become good in Angular, but I see that there are some design patterns and best practices in context of software engineer. What should I learn other than Angular to become a good Angular developer?
Ooh, that is a great question. I think as software developers, we should never think of ourselves as Angular developers or React developers or Vue developers, even necessarily as web developers, right? We have things that we build expertise in, but as the question implies, right? Sometimes you build that expertise by expanding your horizons beyond that particular vertical. Definitely for me, I play with other frameworks regularly, and dig into kind of how their compilers work and how their rendering engines work, because seeing how a problem is solved in different ways gives you a lot of really good insight into how to approach leveraging any tool in a better way to solve that problem. You really start to understand, okay, I see how Angular was thought about in order to attack the problem a certain way. And once you see that, how it was fit to the problem, then you can apply it more effectively. And you often see that by studying, okay, how do other tools think about it differently? And it's in that comparison that you find the real kind of core knowledge.
That's right. That's a good point. I think there's a lot to be learned just across platforms. So for example, if you think about how mobile developers solve some problems, you can learn a lot from that space and apply it in other ways too. Like I learned a lot from doing mobile development that totally informed the way that I did front-end development, and vice versa, actually. And even back-end engineering, like so much to learn. Yeah, so much to learn. Okay, projected signal won't be introduced as a new signal API type, perhaps in different packaging later?
Correct. Projected signal is an internal thing. It's one of the pieces we want for signal forms, actually. It's a primitive for building signal stores. And it has some particularly good properties that make it a good fit for signal forms. There's a more general form of this API that we are in the process of designing, that I don't have any kind of ETA for. We largely have called it mapped signal. But it is kind of doing the same thing of I have a big signal with a big object, and I want to give you a writable handle to a part of it. That has kind of an API that's more designed for with kind of more safety and more flexibility even, that is not ready yet. But that will probably be the form in which this ships.
So don't treat this like inject and try to sneak around our API barriers and start using it in production. Okay, friends?
Yeah. Projected signal has it's an API with sharp edges. You can shoot yourself in the foot with it if you're not applying it in the way it was designed to be used. So it's not a good API design for public API surface.
That's not going to stop anybody, Alex.
Oh,
I'm
I
let you know now. I'm like, no, I have a good use for this, and I believe that that's true, that people do have good uses
Yeah.
for the API. So, but I just know someone's going to say that, they're going to be like, I have a good use for this. So we're going to do it anyway. Are there any plans for error boundaries or template error handling?
It is something we have talked about. And I think it's on our backlog to investigate there.
Yeah.
I think we definitely see the need for it. Again, find the GitHub issue, upvote it, comment, let us know your use cases. That really helps.
That you have no idea. So we published maybe like what, Alex, had to be like 4 years ago, the process by which the community can influence like our like investigation into issues. And it was creating an issue. If a certain number of people upvote that issue, the team will look into it. Not saying we're going to fix or do something, but we will like prioritize it differently. That is still true. We still follow that procedure. So do that 100%. I was wondering in which use case we want to pass a custom environment injector to an ng component outlet. So for context, Alex, we just posted recently on our socials about this feature. And so people are kind of really curious about like when you would use something like this.
Yeah. So if you think about what router outlet does, right? When the router wants to render a route, it needs a place in the template where it's going to insert the thing. That's router outlet. But you could imagine if you're writing your own router, right? You're using ng component outlet for that. And the router is capable of lazy loading the component that you want to render, but it's also capable of lazy loading services and other providers that are next to that component. And in that case, you would take those services, you would put them in a custom environment injector, a child environment injector of the application, and pass that to the ng component outlet. So whenever you want to render that component, but add some additional context, add some additional services that make sense for that part of the application, you do that by creating a custom environment injector.
There you go. There you go. Good question, Logan. Thank you, because you aren't the only person who asked this question. So I've seen it comment a few times. Okay. Now, this is spreading like wildfire on Twitter right now. Igor's posted about it. I think Enia posted about it. I think Daniel posted about it. Everybody's posting about this. Is Zoneless going to be stable in the Angular 20.2 release?
I think so.
All right.
I'm not sure if it's landed yet, but I think that was the intention.
Okay. But we already know what y'all have been doing. Y'all have already been using it, so keep using it, right? Like y'all been doing it anyway, so keep using it. But yeah, but I know for some organizations, you all have policies where you do not adopt things that are not marked as stable, right? So check the release notes. We'll have some updates coming out about 20.2. You could always check on GitHub to see what we're talking about and what we're doing. All right, let's see. I don't know if we can answer all of this, but let's just try. I've built the ng Express template for creating full stack applications with SSR. From your experience, are there any concerns, limitations, or pitfalls with this approach, or is it ready for production use?
By the way, I just checked. The Zoneless stabilization did make it.
Oh, wonderful. So
yeah.
Yes, back to the previous question, yes.
Yes. Built the ng Express template for full stack applications. I have not really looked at ng Express at all. So I don't have enough experience to say if there are any concerns or limitations there.
You know what we can do though here, Mohammed, because I don't know the answer to this either. Two things. One, chat, if you're watching right now, could somebody comment on this to if you had experience with this, could you comment? Let them know. Then second, if you cannot find a satisfactory answer, just tag me on Blue Sky or Twitter with your question, and then I'll like take it back to the team and we'll see if we can get some more details for you. Okay. But yeah. Thanks for the question. Definitely thanks for the question. Okay, will Signal Forms get a simple hook to use things like VestJS based module validation. I don't know what VestJS is, so unfortunately.
VestJS is an awesome validation library. Definitely worth looking at. It kind of lets you define validation like you write unit tests.
Like it should blah 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 blah, like specs like that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's the one I'm thinking of. But anyway, yes. Signal Forms has standard schema validation. And so it works with Zod and things like VestJS and any other tool in the ecosystem that supports standard schema.
Okay, that's great, because there's another question about whether it had Zod validation or Zod support.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's awesome. Arnie said, see, that's the next question, actually. Alcatraz, yes. You heard it from the legend himself. Yes, Zod integration works. I love how Zod has made its way into the as the staple of application development these days, because even with something like what's the name of the Firebase tool for AI development? Not Cogent. I can't think of the name of it right quick. My brain is blank right now.
Studio or
Compose? No, it's the API, it's the SDK for coding. Not Firebase Cogent. What's the name of this thing?
GenKit.
GenKit. Thank you. I'm like Cogent. Yeah. GenKit has support for Zod. The Gemini API has support for Zod. So that's pretty significant adoption signals. You know what I mean? That's pretty awesome.
And I love that there's Zod, but there's other libraries that are doing similar things, like VestJS included. And they all got together and decided on a standard API surface and type system to support.
Love it.
And that's standard schema. And so Signal Forms could do a little bit of work to support that API shape and gain flexibility with all these other things.
Maybe that's something that's worth us thinking about when we think about documentation and examples when the APIs are ready for the experimental preview. It might be worth it to just show some of those things, since people are curious. So something we should probably take note of let's come back to that idea of showing some examples of and you can use Zod here, and you can use Vest here, right? That could be cool. Would there be a potential for some linked signal reset to default value pattern usage possible with the form?
Absolutely. It's your value in your link signal. You can reset it however you like.
Let's go.
Yeah, and Forms will have the equivalent, ability to say, please reset the touch state and everything else as well.
All right, let's see. Working with objects and signals without the need to synchronize.
That's the whole idea.
We're going to be saving people a lot of headaches, which is great, which is really, really fantastic. So context would be like the form group. Is that where that context object is coming from?
It's similar, but not quite. Context is our way of giving you here is access to the rest of the form.
Yeah.
And so from context, you can ask for your value, but you can also ask for the value of any field that you know how to talk about. So in the item schema, for example, you can access any field inside that item. And you saw me do that from going from the password field and to the confirm password field, because they're both within the same item. I can also ask about any of the children of those things, etc.
Ooh, love it. What about autocomplete? I think this is with Signal Forms. Is there any APIs or any hooks that make autocomplete easier for us?
Yeah, there are ways of defining what we call properties on parts of the model. And one of the things you can do with that is say, based on the value, go and fetch suggestions, and then you can consume that property in the UI.
Ooh.
You can do that in the UI too, without needing to evolve the form system. But if you happen to have need of that data in the form itself, you can do that too.
All right. I saw on the internet people say for even API call, we should do unsubscription. And some say it's not needed. As an Angular team member, what's your opinion on it?
Yeah. So as always, there is no single yes or no answer to this, right? So I think it's interesting to say, well, why should you do unsubscription? And so if you imagine you have a click listener and a button, like button click in a UI, runs a click listener, does something asynchronous, right? If it's possible for the user to navigate away or somehow like close the thing they're in and destroy that component before your click listener is done running, then you can hit a situation where at the end of the listener, after the server comes back and says, yeah, great, you're now trying to interact with a dead component that's no longer on the screen. And you can get into weird situations doing that. You can query for elements and they no longer exist. You can try to call Angular APIs and Angular will tell you, hey, I can't add something to this view container ref, right? It's gone. So to avoid that situation, the easiest thing you can do is make sure to unsubscribe so that when your component is destroyed, so that you don't end up running logic that expects your component to exist. The exception to this is if you're doing what I call a mutation action. So if the user hits a save button and you're trying to write a value into the database, you probably don't want to cancel that if they then navigate away, right? Because they're expecting their data to be saved. So that's a situation where you would handle it differently. You would not unsubscribe from the posts or whatever to update the server, but in your handler at the end, you would want to then say like, oh, is this component still around where I can show them the, toast of like, hey, successfully saved, or do I want to notify them some other way? So that's a place where you would just be more careful in the handler of, is my component alive or not?
All right, excellent. Let's see, we got 9 minutes. Okay, friends, I'm going to ask you. I'm going to go through some rapid fire questions with Alex, and then for the last few minutes, we can talk more about forms. I bet you Alex will be up to show a little bit more of a demo, or show a couple more features for coding. But you all have to let us know right now because we're almost out of time for today. We want to make sure that we leverage all of our time properly. All right, can we use effect to change some other signal value? Is untracked needed?
Yes, you can use effect to change another signal value. You don't need untracked to do it.
Should they, Alex?
There are situations like, again, there's no yes or no answers. I will say, why might you not want to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That when you use effect to update signals, you introduce a time step. So there is a period of time when the input to your effect has changed, but the effect hasn't run yet. And that can create really weird inconsistencies. So if I have, for example, temperature in Celsius, and I'm using an effect to say, oh, when the Celsius temperature changes, I write to the Fahrenheit signal and tell it there's a difference. Then there's a period of time in which my UI might be showing the Celsius temperature and a Fahrenheit temperature that don't match. There's a period of time in which other effects might observe these things being in an inconsistent state. So one of the powerful things about signals with computeds is that they are always consistent. You never observe a computed being out of sync with its dependencies. The moment you start changing signals and effects, you create that opportunity for inconsistency. That said, there are times when it's perfectly reasonable to do. For example, if you're like using an effect to go and fetch data, and you want to set a signal there that says like, yes, I'm loading, you should show the loading indicator in the UI. Perfectly valid to do that. You're not going to create any inconsistencies by changing the loading indicator state.
Because that's a question that comes up whenever signals come up, the power of effect comes up. Like, should we do this? MCP, I think the question is, what is our MCP plans? I can take this one. There is an experimental MCP server out there. You can check it out. But that's not even the full tip of the iceberg. We are working on ideas, strategies, plans all around how to best serve you folks with a good MCP server implementation. I cannot tell you more. I cannot tell you when. Can't tell you how. Just tell you that this is something that we're like working on actively. Active. All right, you got some really great questions here. I think we'll finish these questions and then we can call it a day for today. Will signal forms require developers to have a form HTML tag in order to work? For example, I always like to use MG model without a form. How dare you?
I do too, Mark. No, you do not need to use the HTML form system to use signal forms.
But isn't there something accessibility, something like
it
that matters?
it is good practice to use the native form controls in places. That's why mat input is on an input element, because it has a lot of accessibility benefits. I'm not sure about the form tag specifically, what that brings to the equation. We tried to do, there's support in forms for, like CSS has :valid and :invalid selectors, or selectors, I guess. And we tried to make the form system operate, the signal forms use those. But it turns out that's not really possible because they're only able to be defined on a custom element. So.
Okay. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, this is a good one. Could you comment on the challenges of implementing Selectorless, the problem it aims to solve, and how it may affect what Angular is or tries to be?
Oh, man. How long do we have? 5 minutes?
5 minutes, yeah.
Yeah. So Selectorless is a few things. But I think the best way to kind of think about it as a developer experience improvement is to think about, today components really have two names, right? You have the class name of the component that you're importing in the TypeScript file, and you have the HTML tag name of the component that you're referencing it through a template. And because there are two names, something has to link these two, right? The framework needs to know what you meant when you said my-component in the template, which TypeScript component that corresponds to, so it can generate the right class reference. And the way we do that today is through the imports array plus metadata on the component itself. And that has implications for how you, how your framework compiler integrates with the build system. A tool like Vite, for example, wants to take one TypeScript file and generate one JavaScript file output and not look at the contents of other files because that's slower. And Angular doesn't really fit well into this model because we need to know the relationship between the two names of the component, and the only place we can find that is in your dependencies, right? When you import mat button is the only place we can learn about mat button selector. An interesting kind of parallel in the AI era here is LLMs have the same confusion. An LLM needs to know the component name that I'm using for the TypeScript import, the component name that I'm using in the template. And if they're different, it's just more opportunities for it to get confused.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why we're aiming for Selectorless, right? What problem it aims to solve. As for the challenges, it really changes the mental model of the framework, I think, in subtle ways. So previously, Angular was designed, AngularJS dates back to this era of, you have components are tags in the actual browser document that comes from the server. It's really extending HTML to have new behavior. And other technologies, other frameworks out there have kind of shifted more towards components as like functions that you're invoking that are composing parts of your UI together. And they kind of look the same in a lot of places. You can imagine, oh yeah, I just replaced the, my dash with my button capitalized. But the change in how you think about UI composition is subtle and has kind of more downstream effects than that. That it's not just aesthetics. It's not just convenience. So we're working through those discussions. There's, Selectorless is not coming to Angular anytime soon. This is ongoing discussion research.
All right, I think we're just about out of time for today's session. But Alex, you have been fantastic per usual. The streets went wild. People were waiting in line just to get a chance to chat with you. Alex, where can people find you online if they want to find out more about what you're working on or things you're just interested in? How can they find you?
So I think the best place to talk to me is probably the Angular community Discord.
Yeah.
I'm fairly active on there. I kind of occasionally jump in to answer questions and threads. I hesitate to say ping me, but like if you actually want my opinion on something, feel free. And yeah, other than that, I'm a lurker on things like X or Twitter, Blue Sky, etc.
For sure. Yeah. Check out the Angular Discord. Alex is there. We're everywhere. Friends, it has been fantastic. I don't think we have a stream next week because guess what? I'm going to be on holiday. So I'm not working for once in my life. But we will be back later this month, maybe with the stream, maybe not. We'll see. But we'll definitely, for our September stream, listen, if you want to see us come back with a third stream in August, there's one way you can directly influence this outcome. Like, comment, and subscribe to this video. You do that. I'll even work on getting somebody like Andrew Seguin to come on the stream to talk about like our component story and where we're going and things we're thinking about. But I can't do it if you don't do your part. So do your part, participate. Thank you for watching. Thank you for all your questions. And friends, there's always going to be a question of what should I use? What should I build with? You know what really matters the most is that you're out there building great apps. So have a good time. Enjoy your coding, and we'll see you on the next one.
And have fun on your vacation, Mark. Cheers.